hopefully you've been following this series from the beginning. Basically, we've created a very basic web application using HTML, JavaScript, jQuery Mobile. This is what it looks like here, running as a local file. I've also copied it to my website, filmcircus.com/scripts/list is where it's at right now. If you're watching this video 2 years from now and it's not there anymore, things move on. And you can quickly search through this list. And I put it on my web server because in this tutorial we're just going to basically look at it, making it seem like it's a local application, but connecting the internet for the information. I think this is a much more efficient way because you can modify and update the application without the user having to update anything on their system. Because basically we're creating a viewer to view our application that is written in HTML and JavaScript, and we're doing this basically so you can write the application once, and it will run on pretty much any operating system with a current browser on it, but we're packaging it to make it seem more like a standalone application. If for some reason you want to distribute it with an installer of some sort, you can put all this in the installer and have it install. That being said, I think in most cases you're better off just using a website. Just sometimes some people like having things run local. So you could do this all local if you watched the previous tutorial with GTK and Webkit with Python. We're going to do basically the same thing today with C++. And instead of GTK, we're going to do Qt, which you could do with Python as well. I'm just showing two different examples. I use GTK in Python. Here I'm going to use Qt. And this will be written in C++, which I am not very good at C++, but this is a very basic application. I'm going to try to do my best to explain everything as best I can. This code is even shorter than the Python code. You'll actually probably be able to, you'll have on a Windows machine, it will be an executable thing. One of the, there's pluses and minuses to both. Python, you're going to have obviously Python installed as an interpreter, Webkit, and the GTK, or if you use Qt, the same thing. And then you have a Python script, which you could package within an executable multiple different ways. We're going to get more into that in this series as we go on different ways to make executables. This is written in C++, so you'll have a binary thing. Nice thing about the Python is, since it's a script, there's no recompiling, but with this, although we'll write this once, and this code will work on a Windows, Mac, or should work on a Windows, Mac, or Linux desktop machine without any changes, you'll have to recompile it for each operating system. You'll also have to recompile it if you're on a different architecture, like if you wanted to run this on an ARM processor. So that's a drawback. You don't need to change code. You just need to recompile it. But we'll jump right in here. And once again, to do this, you'll obviously need your Webkit modules installed and your Qt information installed. I'm doing this on Linux. All that's in the repositories. I'm not going to get into that because that's pretty simple. Just search your repositories. If you just install Qt Designer, even though we're going to do all this from terminal, that should install every package you need, even though it's going to be installing more than you need. But that's not part of this tutorial. Hopefully you already know how to install that if you're going to be writing this up. So let's go ahead and minimize that. Go in here. I'm in an empty directory here, and I'm going to use Vim as my text editor. I'm going to create a C++ code file. I'll call it mylist_view.cpp. In here, I'll need to include two packages. Include Q application and include Qt Webkit /Q web view. Okay, and now we can start our main function. So int main, and here this little bit of information here, I believe, is mainly to grab arguments. Once again, I'm not the best at I'm not that great at C, and I know even less about C++. But this is information, I believe, so you can pass arguments, because I've used this before to pass arguments to an application, which we won't be doing here. But if I remove this, I get errors, so I'm just leaving it in there. So I'm sorry I can't explain that better, but that's where we're at. So within our main function, we are going to call Q application. We're going to create app, pass it the non-existent arguments, the count and the variable information, I believe, is what these two stand for here. And then we're also going to create an object. It's going to be a web view object. And we'll call it view. So asterisk view equals new QWeb view. Okay. So we're almost done. We're going to want to do our return, because you'll always want to return information, and we'll say app.exe c, and that is what we created up here, the app. We're just basically executing it. When we get to the end here, it will execute all the other code, I believe. So now there's only 3 more things we need to put in here, 3 more lines of code. We want to give our default window a size. We want to tell it where our HTML code is, and then make it all visible with show. So we're going to take our object here that we created, view, and we're going to say use view and resize it to, last time we said 600 width, 800 height. And then we'll say, once again, use our view object, and this time we're going to load something. We're going to load a URL in this case, because we're going to be linking to the files in this case on my server. And we'll give it the link, http://filmsbychris.com/scripts/list/index.html in this case. Another great thing about hosting this on your web server is that, in this case I'm using HTML, but you could also have server-side scripts such as PHP, which I've been doing tutorials on. But when it comes to server-side programs, you can write that in any language you want. So it's a very easy way if you want to write stuff in C, write stuff in Python, write stuff in Perl or Bash or PHP. You can do all that on the server side and have your server do all the work and just output the HTML. So if you know basic HTML and you have a server, you can now write these applications for any operating system, not having to install. You can, you have your server, so you know what your server can handle. And although you can write local things for Android with Python, or local things in a shell script or bash script for Android, it can be kind of difficult to distribute that. So doing it this way, using HTML as your interface, you can use your server-side script and write in whatever language you want. So that's a big benefit of writing applications like this. So now the last thing we need to do is take our view object, and we're saying show. So this code right here is a lot shorter than our Python code, which is nice. Automatically puts in the scroller there for you, and show will show all. So all we have to do now is save this. And now we're going to say qmake, which hopefully you have installed. As I talked about at the beginning, you want to install those packages first, dash project. So qmake dash project. And when I list out, you can see it created a new little project based on the name of our folder. So my folder is called my list, and it created a project folder or file. So now I can use Vim to view this and edit it, because we need to add a line to this. So right here, automatically it put in here that our main source file is the mylistview.cpp. We need to add a line so that when we compile it, it knows to include the Qt Webkit. So we're going to say Qt space plus equals Webkit. Now that we've done that, we just need to run qmake and then make. And it should do fatal error, no such directory. I think part of my problem might be, let me remove the make file. I'll remove my list project file. because I think, and I've done this before, we want our CPP file to be the same as our folder name when we're working with Qt here. So let's move our mylist_view.cp to mylist, since that's what I named the folder. I forgot, with Qt, you want to make sure that your main CPP file is the same name as your the folder you're in, because that's going to be your project name. Now I will do qmake. I'm glad I did that, because if I didn't do that in this video, you guys might have done it and not know what was going on. So qmake-project, it created our project file here, so I'm going to vim into that. Pro. I'm going to add our information here on Qt plus equal Webkit to include the Qt Webkit here. Save that. Then I'm going to say qmake and then make. And I am still getting that error. Oh, I do think I was right about renaming that folder, the folder and the file the same. I could be wrong as well, but I think I'm right on that. But I think it's just a typo in my code. Oops. We've got here import Webkit. I think the K needs to be capital. Yep, that would be it. So now qmake and make. Okay, good to go. Sorry about that. So if I list that out, you can now see that I have an executable file here called mylist. And I'll say :/mylist. When I run that, it opens it up. And it's 600 by 800 in width and height. We can, of course, search through our list, and if we made these executable, they would be executable. And even though this seems like a standalone application, it's actually connecting to my server, which really the only drawback, in my opinion, of having it run on your web server is the fact that you need an internet connection. But really, who doesn't at these points? But you can also connect it to a local file, as I showed with the previous tutorial using a Python and GTK with Webkit. You just need to point it to the local file rather than a remote file. Close that, and it closes the window. So that's pretty much it. Once again, to compile this for Windows or Mac, you can do that without having to change the code at all. You should be able to cross-compile for Windows. I've never been able to find a way to cross-compile for Mac. So to get this to work, you will actually, as far as I know, need a Mac machine with Mac OS to compile this for that. For Windows, you should be able to cross-compile. I'm not going to get into that on this tutorial. So drawback is you have to recompile it for each system and architecture that you want it to run on, but you don't need to change the code at all. Also, when distributing it, obviously, you'll have your executable file. You'll also need to package it with your needed libraries. Once again, as I've been trying to get across with all these tutorials on using HTML and JavaScript as our user interface and using other programs as the backend, whether it be local or remote on the server, basically writing the program is the easy part. What's difficult is the distribution of it, because every operating system does it differently. Linux makes it pretty easy with their package managers. You can create a package, and you can have that package call the package manager for dependencies. Windows, there's really not an option for that currently, so you either have to package all the dependencies into your installer, or have your installer download it, kind of like when you go to install an application on Windows and it says, oh, you need ActiveX, or oh, you need Flash, which are two things you probably already have installed, but there's examples like that. And it either downloads them from your net, or if you got it on a CD, it might have that in a folder already. Luckily, if you're working with open source dependencies, you're not much of an issue. If you're working with proprietary stuff, you may not be allowed to package it with your system, so that's another reason why you might need to have your installer download it from the internet. So I hope that you're enjoying this tutorial, this series, showing you how easy it is to wrap code that's written in HTML and with JavaScript as a standalone application. You'll still have to package it as far as an installer of some sort. We're going to get a little more into that as this series goes on. Right now, I'm just looking at basically wrapping the code. And that's pretty much it. I hope that you're enjoying these tutorials. Please be sure to click on the annotation for the entire playlist. Visit my website, filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with the K. If you have any questions that are technical questions, the comments below are probably not the best spot because I probably won't even see them, especially as this video gets older in time. Your best way to get questions answered from me is try to connect up with me in the IRC channel. Don't come into the IRC channel just looking for me. Come to the IRC channel to chat with people on that channel. That's the reason I have the IRC channel, because I can't always be there. I can't answer every question, but we have a community going in there, and hopefully someone in there will be able to help you or point you in the right direction if they can't help you. And if I'm around, I'll do my best to answer your questions. You can get there. We're on Freenode. It's # Films by Chris. Once again, that's Chris with the K. You go to my website, filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with the K. There should be a link in the description. In there, on my current website, if you're watching this for a while now, my site might change. But there should be a link somewhere to the IRC channel. Currently, it's under the social networking tab. Click on IRC. It'll bring up a web interface to the IRC channel. That's one way of getting there if you don't have a IRC client already. So I thank you for watching. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description to the source code for this, and I hope that you have a great day.